mai hau mai korero mai. He aha te kai o te rangatira. He korero, he korero, he korero. Which means, what is the food of the leader, which is all of us? It is knowledge, it is communication. So welcome. Jeremy is here. Oh yes, here he is. Apology from Phil Morrison. He actually has told me, but has he told
He's on leave, so he's there.
Yeah, he's officially on leave, so that's okay. Somebody like to move that we accept that apology?
Yep.
Rundle, seconded by Alistair.
So we also have an apology from Morgan Falconer.
Okay, I don't think. Do you need to record an apology of staff, or is it just council members?
I just write it in the present as apology. I don't need to move it up the rest.
Yeah, just note that. Thank you. Somebody move those be accepted. Do we do that? Oh, we did. Move a seconder. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Right. Any declarations of interest? No. Public. Oh, I should mention Paul is here today. Paul's not officially a member of this council, but on this meeting is of the council, of course. I understand that he is able to take part in discussions, but not vote on any matter. Paul is keen to be an official member of this committee, and so I've asked Amy to have a look into that, see what the procedure is. It's not quite as simple as sticking a hand up at the start of the triennium, but I don't think there would be any problem with that happening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for being here. No public forum. So confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting. It's held on the 22nd of May. Anybody got anything there that they wanted to ask about? If not, would somebody like to move it to be a true and correct record? Alistair, and a seconder.
Yeah.
Lyndall, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. A notification of extraordinary urgent business. I'm not aware of any of that or any questions. Or any reports? There's no reports that I am aware of.
I got a verb.
Okay, Alistair.
I'd just like to thank Amy, I think it came from you, the information you gave me regarding the selling of cars and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alistair. Right, now we go on to item number 9.1. Finance report. Today we have a couple of sicknesses. Tanya is unwell, and
She's
so
online.
is Wilma. So Tanya is with us.
And this is Jodie, I think you
Jodie,
previously,
yeah.
who is a team leader corporate reporting, and she will be here to support. Her name is, I'm going to say her as well, but Tanya will lead us off.
Right.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. The finance report, and you've had an opportunity to read, so I'll be going through with your high-level summary and then taking questions. The financial report in this agenda was prepared several weeks ago in time for the agenda. It is, as we've said, unaudited, or the audit is not complete. We are in the process of working through and finalising that now with the audit team, and we are expecting some end-of-year accounting adjustments as a result, which is a normal part of the process. The operating result for that is in front of you is suggesting a better than budget result. So if we look at the I do tend to, in the past, I focused on that operating surplus deficit line, which is in the middle of the financial statement. That's largely what council staff and councillors can control, and that's why we focus on that line. It's showing a somewhat better than budgeted deficit, and better than budget by 765,000 at this point. When we complete the accounts, we are expecting that will in fact be closer to budget as a result of accounting treatment for expenditure on intangible assets. The next line, investment income.
Sorry, Tony. Tony, could you just direct us to the right page number? Sorry, I'm a little bit lost.
Sorry, page 14. Page 14.
Right, thank you.
Just following along, if we can, then our investment income, as we've noted during the year, has been better than budget. Income from investments realised, which is our actual dividends and interest received, is 490,000 better, and the unrealised, the non-cash, what people might call the paper profit, was 1.6 million. A good result in a fairly challenging year, as I said, reflects the value of the portfolio. Government funded projects came in less than budget, and we note in the report that that's to do with two things: timing and assumptions. We assumed that the government funding that we've just been advised would have come through in that financial year, and it didn't. It was delayed quite considerably. And so the funding that you see there is the finalisation of the resilience project known as Shovel Ready. We finished up just recently. So when we look at and combine the operating surplus, deficit in our case, with the investment income, with the government funded projects, noting that the money from the government funded projects is exactly that. It's climate resilience grants that can only be spent on those projects and have been spent. Chair, we've ended up in a position of 765,000 lower than the original budget. Before I move on to any other part of the report, Chair, are there any questions from councillors?
Yes, thank you, Tony. Yes, we have one from Jeremy.
Just to clarify on our budgets, we didn't have any. Do we have no growth in our investments, the unrealised?
We did. For the 3 years, sorry, councillor, for the 3 years of the LTP, we had a zero assumption on growth for that LTP.
Okay.
It was our austerity LTP written back in 2021. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nicole?
I just note the 955k that Ministry of Environment allocated us for the Blue Cliffs dump site cleanup. That was money, it was a job we didn't expect, but it was really good to get that funding to cover that job. So that was excellent.
Yes. There's no other questions, and I'll just cover the balance sheet, page 16.
Oh, sorry, Tanya. Jeremy's
Sorry,
just coming.
Tony. Just so that's the government funded project. So is that the full cost of Stead Street in there? Yes.
So no.
Okay.
On the profit and loss statement, this is complicated, and I know it confuses account.
No stress about it. I was just asking.
Okay.
That's all I
No,
need to know. No, that's fine.
It reflects the income. The additional cost we can just look at now in the balance sheet, page 16. The line property, plant and equipment, 67.4 million. Councillor, that reflects all our investments, the increase in our investments into climate resilience projects over the years. So there's a movement there of million.
Yeah.
Which is all plant purchased during the year, not just the climate resilience projects. So that was the only two things to note on the balance sheet was the increase in investment in property, plant and equipment. And the second one was that we ended the year cash negative 4.5 million, better than we originally intended due to timing differences. Some of those projects weren't completed and paid until July, August. We had expected to end the year net debt closer to 8. So once we paid those invoices and transferred an amount also back to a trust, we ended up in a similar position to what we expected. The cash flow then on, so I'll come back to the cash flow because in terms of the order of the paper, we then go to debtors and rates. So on the paper, we're noting the situation with debtors at that end of June. We had 2 large invoices outstanding, one of them being, as the Chairman Nicol referred to, was Blue Cliffs. The other one, reimbursement from Kānoa, one of our last grant application actually for the climate resilience projects. The Kānoa application or the Kānoa grant has been received. The MFE funding is still to be received, but we are the banker in that situation, so we haven't. It's not a negative to us. We haven't made that payment. Not so much to note really else on the debtors and the rates. When we're looking at rates, again, just before going through this with the staff, a total of 2,500 properties or rates invoices were sent to DMC for outstanding rates at the 30th of June. That's actually better than in past years when we've had up to 3 or more than 3,000. So while it's an improvement, there's still more we can do, and it's a continual work in progress. I note with the other councils there's a definite move to increase the options available to ratepayers. ORC have just recently cancelled their 3-payment plan and have moved to weekly, fortnightly and monthly options as opportunities for ratepayers to pay. They found that the 3-payment system wasn't being as well received. People found it difficult. It didn't fit in with the 4 payments they were making to other councils. So I think I've said at the previous meeting, that is an option, or those options we'd like to review and bring back to you, setting out what are the advantages and disadvantages of us, perhaps reconsidering our payment options and what impact that might have on our rates debt. One would imagine a positive impact, but perhaps a negative impact on the cash flow. And lastly, I'll jump back to the cash flow report. Now, this is backwards and forwards, if you like. Actually, it's page 24. I'd just like to acknowledge the effort made on this report. We've worked on this together, for, all 3 of us actually, and I'm hoping you like the new format. We've included last year's cash flow as a reference. So that's in the blue there, the forecast cash flow in the green. You can see follows the similar pattern, but we're not going to peak at such a higher in funds balance this year. And then the graphs below, the bar graphs below, are representing the cumulative position, if you like, of the debt. Now, the forecast there, $16 million is as per the LTP year 1 balance sheet forecast. And it is dependent on the expenditure of the catchment capital projects. So that some of those have just been confirmed. The timing is still being worked on. So what I'm suggesting to you is that this is a very early stage cash flow prediction in terms of timing. When the timelines are agreed with Anoa and the final project's timing is brought to yourselves for agreement, then obviously we'll have greater clarity on the exact timing of these cash flows. But what I'm saying is if at the end of the year we've achieved what we expect to achieve, this will be our final debt position. Any questions?
Yes, I've got one from Jeremy, and then I've got one.
Going back to the debts page with DMC, is that, am I to understand that, just to clarify, we sent 2,500 rating units, that 88% of them have actually been paid since then? Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
So we only have 314 rating units that are actually owing to us at the moment. That's what I'm reading.
Now, my understanding of that is that they would have been the recent outstanding debts, councillor, so for last year. So they are current debt. I'll just ask Tracy to confirm that.
Yeah, I'm just saying the 314 rating units are the only ones. Is that how many units that are debtors? Sounds very low. I'm just trying to clarify.
I'm suggesting that it's 314 owing from last year, that there will be, in addition to that, debtors sitting on longer term debt that are represented in the graph below.
Right. No idea. And okay, no, that clarifies that. And the debt, total debt, is that based on the recent Kanoa funding or funding from the government, not our capital projects that we got in the long-term plan that we're going to fund 100%? I can't remember what those numbers.
So, councillor, this cash flow was produced prior to the agreement with Kanoa.
Right.
So it's based. This one is based on our own long-term plan projects. So we will be looking to the catchment team to come back to us, as you will be, with their proposed capital works for this year, now that they've received that notification and that agreement.
That agreement with the, yeah, I'm just saying there's two capital, this stuff we've got funding for, and then there was stuff that we were going to do 100% ourselves.
Yes.
But I just thought you'd said that it was all signed off, but it hasn't been. It's got to come back to council to sign that. Any capital projects.
Yes.
Doing ourselves, is that correct?
Yes. So I think we're talking about the same thing. We have four in here. If we complete these projects as per the LTP, so we're looking to the catchment team to give us advice on if there's any impact on the LTP projects and timing as a result of the Kanoa work, and what they are proposing to bring to you as a works program as a result of that. So when that information comes through to council and the timing of it, we will subsequently update our cash flow here and our timing of the cash flow.
Thank you, Tanya. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yeah, no, I just thought I thought I heard that it had been signed off. That's all I heard the words that these projects they had worked it out.
Oh, sorry, what I meant was the Kanoa agreement has, and
I'm looking at the other capital projects, they haven't been signed off, so.
No, just kind of
Yeah, there's two different lots.
finalised, and the cash flow profile has not been updated yet to reflect that.
All good.
Thank you, Tanya. The question I have is more of a general one, but does relate to debtors and rates and the people that find it difficult to pay their rates. I understand there is a scheme that is used by some councils in New Zealand whereby people who are asset rich and cash poor can enter in a scheme whereby they defer the rates payment. They have to pay interest on the amount that's deferred, so there's no loss to the council. But they defer the payments until their asset can be sold, such as their house, so that the rates are ultimately collected. Any loss to the council is compensated for by the interest paid on that. I don't know if I'm explaining it properly, but I heard talking about it on the radio the other day, and I don't think we do that. Some councils do. Are you aware of that scheme?
No, Chair, I have followed Chairman or the Mayor of Central Otago District Council having discussions in the media on many of these issues, but I wasn't aware that councils had an overall deferral policy. That is something, of course, we could discuss, but it does feel a little bit like reverse mortgages, and that it just at first glance could be quite punitive for ratepayers, just as reverse mortgages could be, depending on the interest rate, of course.
That's right. There's a maximum amount that the total owing can get to, so that it's not more than the value. Well, it can be only more than about 25% of the asset, I think, something like that. So I'll undertake to find out a little bit more about that, and so you don't have to do that. I'll see what I can find out and get back to you on that. Right, has anybody else got some questions? As we have Nick and Lyndall and
Well, firstly, just on that issue, Mr. Chairman, one council that did suggest that it did get some quite adverse publicity about having to have a reverse mortgage to pay for their house. I think what we're doing at the moment, where people can approach us and we can tailor repayments for people that are having difficulty, I think it's a good place to be. There is a cost in going to the option of everybody paying on a fortnightly basis. So I think that's probably the track we want to be going down at the moment. And just looking at that graph, I'm assuming, Tanya, that the lower green peak is because of the debt we're actually funding through overdraft facilities at the moment. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair. We're effectively funding it, our long-term debt through the summer by using our own cash flow, and that is why our total peak is lower overall. From the meeting, the council meeting where the new facility was discussed with yourselves, you'll be aware that by the time we come out of our summer season, if you like, we will be looking to fund with longer term finance the effective shovel-ready project debt, whereas we've had very little cost actually during the construction period because we've funded the cost with our own cash flow.
Yep, that's fine.
Lyndall.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm just, you know what I'm going to ask. Page 22, the Clean Your Loans quarterly report. What's, I think my question is, what are we waiting for to happen next so that it's off the report?
I suppose it's a discussion we can have off later, Councillor, as to about can we ask the councils to actually simply repay us. I don't know that they have to. They have an agreement and a term, I think it's 2025. Yes, we could simply stop reporting on it because it is not changing.
I don't think that's helpful, but I'm just wondering what the next steps are so that it is actually tidied up, because we councillors here agreed to discontinue the scheme. So,
well, I accept that. So what I'm saying though is we do have an agreement with them whereby they do not have to repay us yet. So the contract says 10 years. So could we ask them to repay us perhaps? But it's not a significant amount of money, and maybe they'd all like to tidy it up. So we'll follow that up.
We can look into options
yeah.
for you.
Yeah, that would be great, thank you.
All right, thanks, Lyndall. That's a good point. Paul,
Thank you, Chair. Just a question around the landfill removal contract costs. And maybe a wee bit of understanding about that, because I was under the belief that we were given central government funding for removal of 3 dumps, was that right? Illegal dumps? And did that come to Environment Southland? Or did it go to Southland District Council? And was this over on top of the amount that was given from central government, and central government had paid it through MFE?
I get that. name?
Sorry, Danny, it was a.
Yeah, no, I could hear. I couldn't hear extremely well, but the ES held the contract with MFE, and the work was undertaken by Southland District Council. It was funded 93%, I think, in the end by the cost was funded 93% by MFE, and that is the money we're waiting to receive. At which time we will pay it to Southland District.
Thank you. And just one other thing while I'm here. With regards to your comment of bringing something to the committee later around weekly, fortnightly and monthly payments for people, I believe this is fantastic. I think it's something that should be looked at well ahead of deferring payments on homes and everything else. It gives our ratepayers the ability to deal with the cost of living in budgeted sections of time, which is extremely good. The offset to that would be my concern that it may increase costs to council for accounting.
Exactly, there is a trade-off, councillor, and those are the things we'll do our best to understand. My request of our rates officers is that they contact other councils who are running such schemes and look at what are the costs in terms of increased customer service, and what percentage of ratepayers are taking advantage of these various options, and then we'll bring that information back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Tanya. Al, you had something?
Yep, through you, Chair. Tanya, I might be out of sequence and out of order with this, but my computer skills aren't that good of colouring things on my thing here. But there was $20,000 actually was billed to us as an extra charge from the our auditors for extra work done in the LTP. And we don't have any, do we have any chance of rebuffing that, or do we just accept it?
The paper's being discussed at the Risk and Insurance Committee later today.
That was where I read it.
Yes.
Sorry, I did get out. Yep. Sorry,
Yeah.
leave it.
And the Auditor General's support isn't up to, so that will be discussed this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bethia. Right, okay, anything else? Thanks, Al. No, it's a good point, but it is that other meeting. You'll be at that meeting, won't you? Alistair, you'll be at that meeting, won't you?
Yes, I will, yeah. If Linda will let me.
Of course.
Right, okay. No other questions? Is there anything else, Tanya?
No, Chair, except that we are progressing, very well on our timeline for the annual report, and when that is completed, which will be very soon, you will see it as a draft going to the Audit and Risk Committee, and from there we're expecting to adopt the annual report at this stage, the 23rd of October. We have until the 31st of October to do that.
Right. So
Move the recommendations.
thank you, Nicole. Receive the report, the finance report for this fourth quarter. Seconder is Jeremy. All those in favour, please say aye. Okay, it's carried. Right, thanks, and thanks, Tanya. Now you go on to 9.2, sorry,
See, LTP.
32.
9.2, it's on page 32, thank you, Nicole. Nikki, Rachel.
Dave.
Right, welcome, and please take us through these, highlight the points that you think we should have our attention drawn to.
Thank you, Chair. Kia ora koutou. Through you, Chair, largely take the report as being read. I'd like to highlight a few points. In terms of, I guess, the overall amount of work that the team and as a whole have achieved is massive. There's a summary of key activities provided against the activity area groups of activities, but yeah, that was all done alongside the LTP process as well. So I just wanted to highlight that. In terms of achievements of the performance measures, we're sitting on 34 achieved, 7 partially achieved, and 12 not achieved. I would like to just signal that through the audit process for the annual report, the auditors have signalled a change in their thinking around the partially achieved category, and for them it's not favourable for this year. They're taking a very black and white approach to achieve or not achieve, but we are working through that as part of the annual report process, and I just wanted to highlight that as what will be coming through in the annual report, which is likely to look a little bit different. In regard to the not achieved, I guess with the context of the third year of the long-term plan is that you make your targets looking forward, and a lot of things are subject to change. So for the not achieved, there is narrative provided for all of the measures and targets, which give more context to why things were achieved or not. In regard to those, I guess a significant amount of work has been completed in the not achieved measures and targets. So it's not a case of, nothing's happened, but some of them have very rigid targets and measures that we have learned from for the creation of the 2024 to 34 LTP performance framework. And there are some quite specific targets that make it really challenging when there are changes outside of our control, for example, legislative changes. And some of them we've just got very, very close to achieving them. Does anyone have any? Oh, sorry, actually there's one element that I would like to just highlight in terms of reading through the document, the report itself. So I just wanted to focus in that so there's no confusion. For Q1 to Q3, the reports that come through, the colours, the red, amber, green, refers to the level of confidence at that point in time of whether we are going to achieve a particular measure or target come 30 June 2024. As of now, so the Q4 report, the red, amber, green indicators of whether we believe that we have achieved those performance measures and targets. So just wanted to clarify that change.
Thanks, Dave. Yes, some of those are I have a couple of questions, but then I'll invite others. First of all, as a comment on the 100% of consents process within statutory periods, that's very good. That's something that's really important for us to do. Consent holders and applicants get very grumpy when we don't achieve that, so that's really good, and I'll compliment the staff on achieving that. Going down on the page 36, which starts 37, sorry, where you've got the red, orange or yellow and red, and then page 38, we've got that table with blue and green, green and grey and red dots. Could you explain what the difference between target status and measure status is?
Yes, so the measure status, for some of the measures, there are multiple targets that are associated with those measures, and so that's used as an indicator of how we've done against the overall measure using the multiple targets for those particular measures.
So the target is something we hope to get to, and the measure is actually whether we've achieved it or not. Is that right?
Yeah, so the measure is the indicator of have we achieved the level of service. The target is what we're aiming for in a particular year.
Okay. Now, there are a number of reds there in both columns. Is there anything there that you had to explain before about how some of these are being affected by changes in legislation and that, but is there anything there that you're particularly concerned about that we are likely to be failing and that's something that's really important and that could have significant consequences for us?
Yes, I could comment through you, Chair, on that particular matter. So you will see a number of those targets. So where I guess the operating environment context has changed since the long-term plan was developed. So the first one where we have a red is on page 49, and that's in terms of implementation of the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management. So we had anticipated that a plan change would be notified this financial year. And for reasons I'm sure the committee are all familiar with, we have not notified a plan change. There has been a host of work done, as Dave has alluded to, but because of changing national direction, we are, as you know, considering tomorrow a revised approach to a freshwater program, and so we haven't met that particular target or measure, and that there's been a change in the landscape, if you like. So a lot of the targets where we haven't fully achieved is because of changing circumstances.
Yeah.
So in answer to your question about whether there are any alarm bells ringing, I don't believe we've got any significant alarm bells, but we do have a dynamic and changing environment that we're operating in.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. Thank you. Are there any that are red because of a lack of resources or anything else like that?
I think there's a couple that would be good to highlight in that space. For example, the ones around, you call it an effective engagement with community groups and individuals. We have, in many cases, done work but haven't actually achieved that target. And as you'll be aware, the organisational changes that are going through at the moment are looking to establish a community engagement group to ensure that there's enhanced resourcing and work occurring in this space. So that's an example where we're making changes to respond to, I guess, resourcing constraints.
Right, thanks, Rachel. Yes, that is something that has been read for a little while and is something that's really important. So it'll be good to get that an improvement in that area. You can say that. Any other questions? Sorry, I've been going on, Jeremy.
Just to clarify, it's good to see we're doing a statement around consents, that we're doing them within the time required. But the reality is that the stakeholders holding up processes considerably. And I mean, we're doing our thing. We can stop the clock when you need written approval from certain stakeholders now. But those ones can be up to a year for them to sign off. We have that, you know this. And that's, I mean, we can say, yeah, we're doing a good job, but actually in the community, it's actually being linked down. The system's not. It's taking a lot longer than it should. Just renewal, release consents, winter grazing consents, it's taking a year to get through. And it's not because of us, it's just a process that we have to involve the other stakeholders, and they have no timelines. They can take as long as they want. So there is actually a fundamental problem here. We can sign off and say everything's great, but in the community it's not. And I mean, that's something that, Bruce, I'm not pointing, but that is happening in the community. So there is actually a problem with getting consents done. It's not it's out of our control. Maybe, well, we might have control because we've invited stakeholders to have input too. So,
Thank you, Jeremy. Yes, Bruce.
Yeah, through Mr. Chairman. Yes, that certainly is a legitimate issue that Councillor McFarlane is highlighting. Often through our processes, we'll decide to process an application on a non-notified basis, subject to various parties giving written approval. And there is no statutory time frame for how long they take to do that. some of those entities have some resourcing constraints, and that plays out that sometimes it can take a considerable period of time to obtain written approval to enable the process to then advance. And as Councillor McPhail has highlighted, that does play out for the customer as between when I lodged the application, when I got consent, it took months or a year, even though our processes are technically compliant with the timeframe because the clock stops when those written approvals are being sought. So it's a legitimate issue. In terms of what we can do to seek to address that, we've been seeking to engage with some of those parties that are regularly affected parties to our process, see whether we can narrow the issues that they want to be involved with, and or seek to establish some generic conditions that may be able to be imposed to not then require their written approval and things like that. That's a work in progress. So certainly a legitimate issue that's being raised here. And from a customer perspective, we regularly get some frustration from customers about that. So the team's very focused on doing what they can to keep processes moving, but where third parties become involved, that can create some delays.
Yeah. A solution to that, although albeit expensive, is for the consent to become notified, and then it has a definite time frame, doesn't it? But I guess for relatively minor things, that's an extra cost that's not really justified.
These are.
Sorry, question to Bruce.
Through Mr. Yes, you are correct, and some applicants are doing that now because of the delays that they're experiencing with some third parties. They're just opting to go down a limited notified pathway from the get-go. That does involve, indicatively sometimes $5,000 to $10,000 worth of additional cost through that process, possibly more, depending on where that lands. But that is an option that some applicants are choosing to take because they have become somewhat frustrated with regular delays. So we're endeavouring to keep that dialogue going, seeing if we can sort of narrow the field or narrow the issues somewhat for customers, and with a strong focus on trying to improve the customer experience. Counter argument to that is our planning documents and legislation gives certain parties status to a lot of applications, and we need to be very careful we're not manoeuvring the process to seek to negate those rights.
Thanks very much, Bruce. Al?
Yeah, I'd just like to back you up, through you, Mr. Chairman, I think get it right. I'd just like to back you up, Morris, on asking about resources, because we receive all these reports and things, but we never get any indication if you need more resources, less resources, and I do understand that that's going to become clearer by December when the staff changes take place. But I think that's really valuable stuff to us to know where that's at, to say that we're not actually hamstringing people as staff because of the, and I wouldn't expect it to be, but just if we know.
Thanks, Al. Did you have another one?
Yeah, I had another question. Just in regards to targets and that, I know we've looked in the past, are we setting unrealistic targets? We're either going to be 100% or 90%, and the reality is we'll always fail. Is that ever changed? We've got the flexibility to say, look, nobody's perfect, no business is perfect. Let's not set targets that are not achievable. Let's be realistic about it. I mean, is that something that has been done, and can we do it?
Through you, Chair, yes, that's something that we acknowledged and worked hard on with the 2024 to 34 LTP. So there has been a range of changes to the measures and targets that sit under the levels of service. We didn't want to make too many changes to the levels of service, but we did exactly what you're indicating and ensuring that we are more realistic and we can achieve those measures.
And perhaps just to add, so this report is the last time you'll see this particular format. We've got revised performance measures and targets in the new long-term plan. And you might recall that the business planning work that we did to inform the long-term plan will be the basis of the reporting going forward. So some of the queries you had about resourcing, Councillor Rodway, Councillor Gibson will be, I think, able to be more accurately highlighted through that business planning reporting process.
Thanks, Rachel. Lyndall?
Thanks, Chairman. Coast and Marine, page 46 or 81, depending on which numbering system you're looking at. I'm really concerned that we still don't have a response to the Plan Change 5 from the Department of Conservation, or the Minister for Conservation. Can't believe that that's taken so long, and it seems relatively straightforward, I'd have thought. But my question really is, how is that hindering any of the further progress on the regional coastal plan? And to Alistair and Morris's point, do you need further resource to actually get that work done in time for the April-May target?
So through you, Chair, we have been raising with staff the fact that we haven't heard back from the Minister yet, but I don't believe we've had an update recently. In terms of how that's affecting the review of the overall coastal plan, it doesn't really have a direct impact, and we are advancing that other process. So there is an update coming to strategy and policy tomorrow on the coastal plan review process. I do know that we have probably some challenges in the science space actually with resourcing, so that's an area that we could perhaps discuss a little bit further. So the science area has been very focused on the catchment science summaries to inform the freshwater space, and also responding to events such as Blue Cliffs over the summer, Waituna, and so quite a lot of resource going into those areas, which has meant that some of the marine program has slowed, which has then flown effects through to the coastal plan.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is another letter to the minister worthwhile, or do you think that
Yeah, we
that
could
would
absolutely
be
do
too
that.
negligible? Okay. I think then, Neville.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on a couple of those issues, I'm just wondering if we can develop sort of a timeline for stakeholders not signing off things that we could give a reminder and anything we can help you with, but possibly suggesting an end date just to help that process. But again, I think the same with the Minister of Conservation. We've had their original water plan waited for years to sign off, and I think that sort of follow-up is a good way forward to say, look, can we provide, and probably the same, can we provide you with any more information to make a decision in the case of both stakeholders for consents and in this case the Minister, because otherwise it can just sit on the desk, and it often does sit on the desk, and I think in a polite but timely manner, I think that would be a good response.
Thank you, Nicole. Bruce, did you hear that? It sounds like you're doing about as much as you can really with the affected parties. Would you be willing to go a bit further, or do you think?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, for that.
Yeah. Did you hear Nicole's?
It's an ongoing work in progress in terms of, I don't want to name individual agencies, prefer not to, but resourcing is a constraint for some of the entities that we regularly identify as parties whose written approval is required, and there's some strong legislative backing for requiring that, is also within our plan. We are seeking to engage with those entities regularly, but we also need to tread a very fine line on that we're not pressuring them to change their stance or anything like that. So the thrust of that engagement has been to seek to clearly clarify instances where they may consider they don't need to be considered an affected party, lower end activities which currently require written approval, which may not require written approval. And there was quite a bit of dialogue around intensive winter grazing consents, but the firm message that we got back is that the entities involved did want to be part of that process. So it's not really appropriate for us to say, well, no, we don't think you are now. So it's a delicate space. We're certainly working on refining that customer experience, but in progress.
Just looking at my one sheet, and I'm just a little bit over on this topic. Alistair, Jeremy, you had to get away at.
Oh, yeah. So there.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll have another question then. On page 67. It's about the possum control area program. We have had presentations in the past about changing this slightly to use contractors a bit more. I see we've got yellow lines there, which is not red, but keeping possums under control is really important for biodiversity and for agriculture. So how are we going with that program, the revising of the PCA program to involve so that we do keep possum numbers below that 5% everywhere?
So through you, Chair, and you may wish to comment as well, Lucy, but the possum control program is something that we have factored in for annual plan discussions. So the current approach with the PCAs and landowners is something that you've explored through workshops, whether there are alternatives that should be looked at. And that needs to come into the annual plan discussions for this year, or if you don't wish to advance it for an annual plan process, it would have to be through the next long-term plan. Anything you'd like to add, Luce?
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, and through you, Chair, I'd just add, we've got a couple of workshops scheduled between now and up until Christmas on the integrated catchment management team's work, and this is one of those topics that we're really keen to come back and talk to you about.
Right.
So nothing locked in, but 3 workshops that are scheduled between now and Christmas. We're intending to run those in an integrated way, so you'll hear from each of my teams probably at each of those sessions. So this will be one of those topics to enable you to feed into the annual plan process that Rachel's done.
That is something that might need a bit of extra resourcing, like you say, so in the annual plan process, and we can perhaps allocate it to those. Okay, thanks. Anybody else on that one? Okay, so the recommendation on that.
Page 32.
Page
32.
Thank you very much. So the recommendation is just that we receive the report. Would you like to move that, please? Alistair, and the seconder, Lyndall. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, now this one.
We still have Tanya online, and this is Tracy.
Welcome, Tracy.
Kia ora, Chair and councillors. I'll just take you through the investment report. So I'll take the report as read, but I'll just give a few highlights. So the investment report, JB Weir manages our investment portfolio. We've got 31.3 million in there, and they act in accordance with our SIPO, our statement of investment policy and objectives. That we stick to what they, so those guidelines. So it's really been a mixed year looking over the 12 months to the 30th of June. But the last month, the month of June, we really saw a good increase in the market. And that month, the portfolio increased by 401,000. Of this, 115 was the realised income, investment, interest and dividends, but the rest was capital unrealised income. And over the 12 months, if you look on page 103, year to date, we have an increase of almost 2.5 million from over the 12 months, which is a 9.4% increase over the year. So really good outcome.
Yes, it's been much more positive in the last few years, hasn't it?
Very nice.
So just for everybody's benefit, just explain the difference between the realised and the
Unrealised.
non-realised.
Yeah, so realised income is income that is in the bank. It's interest and dividends.
Yep.
Whereas unrealised income is capital change. So it can be up today and it can be down tomorrow if the markets crash. It's not money in the bank. It's not.
No.
Yeah, so it's really well depicted in that graph on page 105, which shows those two quite clearly. So just the portfolio movements, the little blue bar chart above the line, that's your dividends and interest received. You'll see it's all positive, fluctuates according to if you've received dividends or not, and the interest rate fluctuations. But your capital change, the orange bars, you can see they go above the line, below the line, so that's your capital change. And that causes the peaks and the troughs. So it's irregular, whereas the realised income is more regular. So just going back to page 103, the statement of position. So you'll notice our total cash and deposits is down by about 9.3 million. So this is mainly due to the outgoing cash flows for capital and also for payments to employers. So suppliers and employees, but mainly capital expenditure over the year. And of course, then this just gives your JBWare balance. Any questions on the performance or position?
Thanks, Tracy. And thank you for telling us which page you're on too.
Okay.
Jeremy.
It's I'm quite. It's good that they've locked in obviously long-term interest. I think the reality is, and they do say in their report looking at that. I know the ACR, the Reserve Bank saying a 1% decrease in the next year or so, but most banks say it's 2%. It's more drastic, and they're pretty confident of that. So anything that's locked in long term will be a benefit long term, and for us,
Good point.
And that gives us income. It's realised in a way. So
That's right.
when it's been a good bit.
Thanks, Jeremy. Can we just ask people to, there's no criticism, Jeremy, but ask people to speak up so that people who are online can hear clearly. So sometimes it's a bit hard to hear. Nicole?
Yes, Mr. Dick, Chairman, a very good report, and it's good to see that JBWare are outperforming the benchmark. So it's volatile conditions, but I think our SIPO is about right at the moment. So it's good to see that. So I'm happy to move the report if there are no other questions.
Thank you. Any other questions there? All right, thanks, Nicole. And seconded by Alistair.
Yep.
Those in favour, please say aye. That's carried.
So just as a reminder to the committee, this report will in the future go to the investment committee rather than through to this committee. Thanks, Tracy.
Right, yes, thanks, Bethia, that's right. So it'll go to the investment committee next time. So we're up to 9.4 now, the Regional Software Holdings Report, statement of intent.
Okay, so I'll speak to this one too. Also take the paper as read. So Regional Software Holdings Limited, you'll know it's a CCO, Council Controlled Organisation, so we have a share in it. And we do that because it's shared services, and without doing that, some of the products and things that we use, IRIS, etc., will just be unaffordable, unachievable for while we do this. So the primary focus for RSHL this year is to complete the design and build of IRIS Next Gen, which is really exciting, and to commence the first implementation. So we look forward to that. Just in the background, Mark Neild, our chairperson, is confident it's in a sound financial position, and all programs operate on a cost recovery basis. Just over the page, 114. So the forecast deficit is there of 880,000, and the reason for that is mainly due to the depreciation of a past asset, which is the IRIS program. So that's reflected in the financial performance at 80K and also in your financial position. So it's depreciation, it's just the past asset. So at the last meeting, we noted in the statement of intent that central government had increased their funding, and there were some questions around that. Just concerns, what if we don't receive this funding that's been forecast? So we got in touch with Mark Donnelly, who's the Chief Executive for RSHL, and just included there what he advised. I'll just note what he said. In general, central government appreciates having a vehicle like RSHL to channel funding through, and this model has been successful in securing funding from central government. So that was good to note. So any other questions on RSHL?
Thank you. Thanks for explaining that that deficit, which has increased from last year, but it's explainable there in the paragraph above. Any questions, Nicole?
Yes, it's good to see interest and uptake of other regional councils. Second generation of IRIS, I think if we're all connected, there's going to be certainly efficiencies, and that's going to help us. The age-old problem is you get providers who promise the earth and they struggle to actually provide it. But I think we're getting there on this one, and we're getting the breadth of what RSL are doing now. It has increased the ability to share resources from chief scientists across the region. This is all good stuff. The public are saying, we can't afford increases in rates, and if we can work more collegially and have expertise in different areas, common IT, that's all help.
Yes, thank you, Nicola. It wasn't really a question, but it's a good explanation of what RSL does and how it is important, because it's sometimes a little bit confusing as to, what benefit they do provide.
I know from page 115, it says river monitor. Oh, sorry, through you, Chair. I better get these things right.
No, you're all right.
It partway down there, river monitoring and network. Is that telling us that NIWA is going to send all our information back to us and it's administered by us? Or what does that really mean?
Maybe funding to allow councils to take over monitoring stations in the river.
I think that's probably a level of detail that we don't have here right now, but we can go away and find out what's exactly involved in that project and come back to you and answer that question.
It would just be interesting because things may be changing.
To know if we have.
So yeah, we'll find out what that project is and we'll come back to you on that one.
Thank you. How will you do that? Will you just send us a note or something, or report to the next meeting?
Well, how would you like to do that? We can either answer the question back at the next meeting, or in the Chief Executive's weekly update, we can put a response through there that goes to everybody, just informing what that program is.
I think it's quite an important question, so it would be quite good to have that sort of maybe through the Chief Executive's report, but also back to the next meeting, so it's formally recorded.
We can do both. Yep.
Thank you. Anything else? There's a big report there. I must confess I haven't read it in detail, but
What?
I'm sure there's no typos in it.
I guess the way that we can sort of get covered with that, Tracy, are you happy with the performance of the place, of RSL?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're closest to it.
Yes.
Right, thank you. Yes,
I would
Amy?
say actually, Wilma as Chief Executive is one of the shareholding board members on that oversees the board the RSHL with Mike Neal. So we're fortunate to have representation on there as well.
Well, yeah, it's just good to get the feedback that staff are happy with it. Let's get on with it.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, and I think what Nicole says gives us reassurance as well that, it's a good thing to have and will provide us with real benefits. Right, so the recommendation is that we resolve to receive the report from Regional Software Holdings. So we'd like to move that.
Yep.
Lindor, seconded by Alistair. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you. So 9.5 is the Civic Annual Report and Risk Pool Update.
So Tanya, talking to this one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And if I could, I'd just like to reinforce what Tracy and Amy are saying about RSHL. I had the opportunity with Amy to attend the Corporate Services SIG group, Special Interest Group, on Friday. It's twice a year. We alternately go to this. And look, I'm more impressed each time we meet about their desire for the groups to, all the councils to work together and to support the CEs in ensuring that we're all benefiting from a shared approach to anything that we can possibly do together that would be better for all the council. So very encouraging what is happening here. So Chair, 9.5, Civic Annual Report and Risk Pool Update. The recommendation was to receive the report just like to say to you that each time I read this report, I'm particularly looking at the balance sheet. What's happening? Balance sheet is up, going down. Where's the income going? The income has increased, as it notes, during the year through investment income. They're quite a conservative investor, Civic. So we're looking here at interest income. The balance sheet is heading in the right direction. The other thing we're looking at here, of course, is risk pool and the long-term, and as it turned out, the medium and short-term risk to councils from past insurance cover, and what is happening with that. And it has been a bit oblique, actually. There's been times in the past where I've picked up the phone and rung the chief executive and asked him to explain to me what is happening with risk pool and those claims. And to the best of the ability they have, but they haven't really been able to nail what is happening. So I see now that they've added an additional resource onto their team to help with that, and some commitment around communication back to us as a shareholder. But I would like to reassure the council that we are an investor to 0.09%. So 0.09% is our exposure to this total, as opposed to in council and many others sitting there who have probably much greater reason to be looking at what the claims might mean to them. So we will be putting on to you, of course, information and things that be determined. So, Chair, that my recommendation is that we receive the report and we await further information in the future.
Right, thank you, Tania. Anybody else? Nancy, you want to add to that?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. I think Tania's mainly answered it. There is a wee bit of conversation going around the councils at the moment about their status with risk pool and what the liability is, particularly now the government's talking about councils being able to borrow up to 500% for Three Waters. But I think the point, I'm assuming the 09% doesn't change, because some people use it but aren't full members. So there's sort of two categories of shareholders there. But I think you've answered my question, that our risk is not going to increase massively.
So, Chair, I think we're probably talking about two papers at the one time here. The next paper on our GFA might be what you're referring to.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Hold that question.
No, it's understandable. Really clear about this, what risk pool does, and our risk is low.
Still don't like them. Still don't like it.
So the recommendations, we received that report as well.
Happy to move, Mr.
Happy
Chairman.
to move. Nicole, seconded by Jeremy. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Thank you, Tania, for that. So 9.6 is the local government statement of intent there. Tracy or Tania, are you going to take us through this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. 9.6. So here we're looking at the local government funding authority statement of intent. And again, we're looking at what they're proposing, what their balance sheet is. So we are an investor in LGFA and a guarantor. As an investor, we hold the minimum required funds, which is a share, I suppose, if you like, a deposit. But as a guarantor, we are one of 72 guaranteeing shareholders. So there are, according to their latest information, 77 members plus the government as a shareholder, 77 member councils plus the government and 72 guaranteeing councils. They note through the report a number of changes, and I don't want to go into too extreme detail, but I have some page references for you, Chair. So overall, we're looking at what this might mean to us, as Chairman Nichols pointed out. What does it mean to us as a guaranteeing shareholder of LGFA? First of all of these information is pointing to increased growth in lending. So as the Chair's alluded to, there's going to be significant lending infrastructure in the next few years. What does that mean for us? So page 205 of the agenda, if we go all the way through to that, and I'll just find my copy while I'm online. There's in the middle of that page there, it says the following points regarding the 2/24/27 statement of intent are worth noting. We are needing to strengthen the financial and capital position of LGFA, given the weakening credit outlook for the sector, the additional borrowing by councils that has led to the increased borrowing costs. And then it goes on to talk about how they propose to do that. So we propose to do this by increasing the base lending margin and to increase the borrowing notes. They're saying that it's going to add a very small amount to the charge that they on charge. So they borrow from investors internationally in New Zealand. They're going to add a very small amount to increase their profitability, and they're going to increase the borrowing notes to 5%. Now, they haven't actually advised us yet what that means to us, but it would be a very small amount I'm anticipating. So they're being proactive. They're looking at their forecast amount of debt. They're looking at their structure, and they're saying, like the banks have over recent times, you might remember, the Reserve Bank asked our trading banks to increase their capital reserves. Well, what LGFA is saying here is we need to do the same because we're going to be a much bigger organisation. They go on to note that there's considerable uncertainty about how much water money they will need to fund water done well. And some of the councils will be borrowing potentially up to 5 times their income. I'm not sure if you do remember, but our debt covenant for a council our size is 175% or 1.75 times our income. High growth councils have been given permission by LGFA to move to 350% or 3.5 times their income. But as I said, water debt will be able to be borrowed, and this is courtesy of government, 5 times the 5 times their income. So going to be substantially more borrowings in the future. The summary of that is that that they've been proactive, as I said. They're also noting the changing credit position, the credit rating of some of their underlying councils. Page 241, they're noting there that potential credit downgrade for some of the council. While that might sound a little alarming, we are talking still from AA plus to AA or AA to AA minus. So to save you reading all this, I can assure you that I've read it, and it's still telling us that 91% of their loan book will be above AA rating. So they have, as I said, they're considering their capital structure and they are reviewing their debt book. This is all good for us, very conservatively managed. The other thing you need to understand, perhaps, council, is that there is actually a shareholding council that sits, much like the Fonterra Shareholders Council, that sits outside of the LGFA directorate. And that shareholder council, of course, is monitoring on behalf of all the shareholders. recommendation here is to read and accept or note the statement of intent LGFA.
Right, thanks, Tanya. On that table, you referred us to page 241, the 8.7% of councils, is it, that are unrated?
Yes.
It's only, it's less than 10%, but it says in a bullet point at the bottom side, on the left-hand side of that table, that unrated councils are assessed by LGFA as having, in general, better credit quality than those councils with credit rating. So what are the unrated councils? What is that, something to worry about, or is it something we shouldn't?
No, Chair, just above that it actually says, well, I think it's above that, or it might be on a previous page. I think it is here. Not all councils have credit ratings due to the cost of obtaining rating versus benefits. Now, so that's a statement by them that, of course, we can't verify that they believe that the rating is better than the rated ones. That's the quality statement we'd want somebody else to verify. But there are, in the body of all of this, it does list the councils and the ratings. And so there are a number of councils, Southland District Council being one of them, that don't have a rating. I noticed as we look through it, we ourselves don't have a rating, and it is, as it notes there, quite a substantial exercise to get a rating. The rating benefits you when you're borrowing by a tiny margin, and again, it's in the fractions of a percent that you can get a better rate. But of course, when you're borrowing many millions, it all adds up, and therefore it would be a benefit.
There are some, I think I read somewhere, I'm not sure whether it's in this or not, that some councils, not necessarily in New Zealand, but have gone broke because of problems that they've had, and I guess with the Water Done Well projects, that even though it's going to be done through CCOs, they still might be at risk in the longer term, I guess, unless things can be sorted out satisfactorily.
There's always concern when people are looking at large numbers, but I think international investors are very, very confident in New Zealand, and they're the biggest owner of the debt. So when LGFA borrows money to lend to councils, borrows from investors who are very happy to invest in us, investing in infrastructure, particularly long-term assets, and investing in councils who have the ability to rate to recover that, is still one of the best investments that superannuation funds and others can make. No cause for alarm, just good management required.
Right, thank you. Alistair?
Through you, Chair. Tanya, we got money from ANZ in to get us through a period of stress for finance, and that was actually cheaper than LGFA. As the total amount of money goes out, the risk gets higher, so the margins get greater. Are they going to lose their competitive advantage?
Is LGFA?
Mm-hmm.
So two parts of the question. That the statement about our current funding facility, councillor, is I think is a one-off, and we've done well to be able to put that in place. I don't expect to repeat that in the future. LGFA, they'll be measured by the market, what you're saying, and as long as I've just said before, as long as government and local government debt is managed well and everybody who's the investors are happy with it, then there'll continue to be a discount. Should that change in the future, well, then the discount will become less.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yes, Tanya, I'm reasonably comforted by the fact that they are going to put money aside, a bit like the Reserve Bank's requiring of banks, which probably helps going forward, because if we were to find ourselves slipping to a B rating, interest rates would go up, but it appears that they're aware of the risks and are taking appropriate actions. Reasonably happy.
Thank you. Anybody else? Right, did you want to do anything more, Tanya or Tracy?
No, Chair, I think that's covered the subject.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the explanation. So the recommendation, which is back on page 202 now, is that we receive the report.
Yep.
Moved by Lyndall, seconded by Jeremy. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. So 9.7, thank you, Tanya. Tracy, sorry. Right, how I pull up. So,
So first of all, if you just take the report as read, I would like to actually highlight that we have actually rerun our information assessment annually. That's done annually. It's an internal assessment as recommended by Archives New Zealand. I'd like to actually highlight on page 256 that we have actually improved in our maturity. In particular, we have matured in governance arrangements for information management and our capacity and capability around information management. That's improved by 10% from the past year. And we've also actually progressed in our managing elements of information management by 10% as well, which I think is actually quite a good improvement across the entire organisation. We have still got a wee journey to go in some matters around information management, but we are definitely improving. Also, from the time that the report was read around the work programs from the strategy, you'll note that the digital preservation is actually in red. Since the time the report's been written, the IMSG, our Information Management Stewards Group, has actually met, and we've got our stewards now investigating what information may need preservation, so we can actually scope the project for digital preservation. I'm hopeful that we'll have that scope ready in December this year. Have you got any questions?
right, thank you, Paul. I was just wondering what those terms meant, but they are explained on page 255. So that's good. There's been improvement in that area. Any questions?
Is there an independent body come around and do this, or what's the basis?
So local government, we aren't subject to audits from Archives New Zealand. However, they can actually come in and audit us if they want to. This is really on us more than it's actually on anybody else. Archives New Zealand govern us, but we are actually meant to look after this for ourselves. We're a wee bit different to, say, like health or education, where they will come in and audit health and education, whereas for us it can be just a little bit of a spot audit if they want to.
And that's what they did to get to here?
No, this is an internal process that we do. They give us the actual assessment that we use to actually ask the questions across the organisation, and we do that annually. So we started that when we actually began this strategy, and we've done it every year since.
Thank you. So on page 252, Paul, I've got a red bar there in relation to the digital preservation strategy.
Yes.
And you have explained the problems there. Is this going to be you say that it will hopefully be completed by the end of this year, or the scope will be completed, but then it will take more time to fully implement, and it sounds like it's quite a difficult thing to achieve. Do you see any major roadblocks? Once again, are resources in the organisation sufficient to achieve this? Any major problems, or is it just a matter of time?
I think it is a matter of time, and the biggest thing is actually understanding how much we actually hold that needs actually to be preserved and actually digitised. So we have a whole lot of content in our network drives. We sort of still use the network drives, and a big part of the project would be to say, let's stop putting content in the network drives to actually stop actually creating more of a problem. If we can do that, we have a process where we can do that. We just have to work through that because it's quite complex with regards to actually servers and what's connected to the network drives. That's a big piece. With regards to the content that's currently in our record system objective, so our electronic system, that automatically through system updates will actually preserve the information in there, and any content will actually automatically be updated and digitally preserved through that system. Then we have our physical content. So that's our historical content from 2012 and prior to that. We would actually have to look at it, would we digitise it, will we not? And there's certain parts of our physical information that we'd probably want to digitise. For example, our hazard mitigation information is still physical, and our TAs rely on that information from us to actually help them with their LIM reports. There's a big piece of that content that I'd love to see digitised, and I'm considering an in-house digitisation project for that. But there's different elements, and then we've got science data that might be still on floppy disks that would actually have to be digitised and changed so it's readable. So we could have content that's sitting down at our archive site that we just won't be able to actually preserve because we've actually no longer got the systems that can actually digitise it and bring it into this time.
You can still get access to that information. It's just a bit slower, I suppose.
It will depend on what the format is for that information. Now, we may not actually have a system that we can actually access it anymore. It might be a case of we can't access it. But we still actually have to investigate that, so I can't really give you a full answer on that.
Right. Well, I had a personal experience. I needed some information that dated back to 2010, a little while ago, and I made a request, and the person I dealt with said, okay, I'll have to come back to you on that, and the information was provided a couple of days later. So I was quite impressed by that. I thought that was really good.
It's nice to hear.
Right, any questions about that? Okay. So the report, the recommendation there is on page 251. We've just received the report. Somebody like to move that?
Happy to move, Mr.
Lyndall,
Chairman.
and second,
Yep.
Lyndall. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Right, 9.8, the information systems update. Jane? Welcome, Jane.
Thank you. Good. This quarter's report is a continuation of this, our roadmap year that we set out for achieving our three major goals for the year, which was the integrated systems, the ways of working and being secure and resilient, and we've reported on those all year. I would just like to bring a couple of points to attention, and that's the legacy servers and systems. We are making good progress through that. I've got it still showing amber, and the digital workplace I have that is showing is red. And I'm, looking at that, I've probably been quite harsh on the team and the expectation that we expected to get through. Our goals might not have been 100% achievable with that. So this year we're looking at ensuring that the goals and our targets that we're setting that are actually going to be achievable for the team with all the other BAU bits that are going on. So the other two areas that in the integrated ecosystems and the ways of working, that I just would like to bring that to attention. They are doing well. We've got for the Windows 11 devices, we have got until mid next year to get those off Windows 10 so that they are fully compliant and also that we're benefiting from the Windows 11 features that are available, because half the organisations on it and half isn't. That's when you go to another machine, you go, oh my goodness, there is quite a difference when you actually see those. So, and I just would a shout out to the team as much as anything around our patching. Our patching was always a struggle for us to actually get to patching all of our devices. Now that includes all our security patching, and that's gone from being agreed to being a green. So we've got a significant program in place now. All devices are getting patched. Before we move on to the metrics, any questions on any of those items?
No, councillors have been naughty again. We haven't pushed the wrong button or anything like that.
We'll find out.
Well, yeah, that's the next report. The so in the metrics we've kept them to be we chose 6 for this year, so we have a look at that for next year's reporting. You know, where's the value of what we're reporting to council on this? Particularly good progress being made on the age of our devices. So again, because we've got a replacement program that's well actively in place now, rather than leaving things till they die of death, we're actually trying to be active in that replacement project. We've got 78% of our fleet now that are less than 3 years old. So that's a really good improvement on where we were. And again, we had 100% uptime in our Flex on Demand usage, which is what we pay for our server and space, is operating as we expect at this time of the budget process. And email traffic certainly seems to be never ending and flowing in swiftly. So that's sort of my highlights of that report. Is there any questions on them?
Thank you, Jane. I was going to ask before, I'm trying to understand what this is, that on page 259, that NCAP and infant.
Right. So the National Farm Data Portal project, which we became involved through from the technology point of view, is that national project that went on hold. So that is tied in with the bridge and with the environmental farm plans as well. So currently the INFDP project is on hold and the bridge has been hibernated.
The bridge?
The bridge was the national portal that was set up for capturing the farm plan information. So that was the regional farm plan, as in the regional councils. So it's currently on hold completely.
So that raises another question then about, we talked before about farm plans being able to be done sort of online and information about the farm and soils and that sort of uploaded automatically. Is that going to be possible at any stage?
Yes. So I unfortunately missed, there was a kick-off meeting, I think, on Monday. I wasn't at that meeting, and so, but as we've got our online data capture forms, we can capture that information and it will come automatically into Iris, so we can capture that data.
So where are we at with that?
We're
aligning that with, I know farm plans are a little bit up in the air, but Nicole's article in the paper saying farmers should be gathering information still in preparation of doing this.
Yeah, Lucy.
Lucy.
Oh, Lucy, thank you, Lucy. You were at the meeting. Thank you.
It's probably a strategy policy thing, but what I'm really asking about is the ability of us to be able to help people do them through our website, basically.
So through you, Chair, just add to Jane's comments. The farm plan process obviously on hold at a national level. Regionally, we still have Appendix N and we're still advancing with the rollout of that. The systems and processes to support that are well in train, but what that actually looks like now, we're under a government pause, is what the team are currently re-looking at to make sure that we are connecting it to IRIS, as James said, but also making all of our GIS layers, etc., available to everybody so that they can see what they need to. The other connected part to it is the catchment context work that's underway, and also the snapshots that are coming through from the science teams. So all of those things are being pulled together. It's fair to say the team's been taking stock the last wee while to see what the changes to the program need to look like, but we'll be intending to bring that back to you as part of the further conversations to roll out over the next wee while.
Okay.
Now, I haven't looked in detail, but I understood there might be some reference to the changes in the strategy and policy agenda for tomorrow in regards to the freshwater approach. But if not, we can talk about it a bit more then and afterwards.
Thank you. Anything else, Alistair?
Can you just clarify for me, sorry, through you, Chair, all devices are leased, right?
Yes.
It's the whole 200 and something of them.
Mhm.
And do we pay a higher price for those that are under 3 years? How does all that work? Because it's saying here that we've still got 22% that are older than 3 years.
Yes, so what we have done in the past is sometimes we've bought some of those devices back because they still have value, and we weren't in a position to be able to replace them at that time of when they were due for their release and for replacement. And so that's why we're trying to get ourselves fully aligned to that 3-year replacement program going forward, so that we are all devices. The intention is to have all devices replaced every 3 years.
Does that change the lease cost when they're younger?
No, we lease them for 3 years, and there has been the odd time where we've purchased the devices back again.
Yep.
So the overall net cost would be slightly higher, but the lease cost is lower than purchasing them straight up as capital items.
Yep.
Because they still have a residual value. So we pay we've paid the residual value a couple of times to get to have ownership then of those items.
You right with that?
Is that-
Well, I was going to say that you could give me the oldest thing possible and it wouldn't be.
You may have.
I probably do.
That's my next question. I've got a top's probably 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
Are these part of that discussion?
Yes, yeah. So some of those
Are
devices.
we own these ones?
We do own those ones. All the black ones we own, yeah.
Yeah. And the question has sort of been asked because you lease them, that we don't, what do we do with the old ones? We've got a room full of, I'll put it at home, my laptop's starting to stack up,
Yes.
We're leasing, that's obviously somebody else's.
So we have a contract
Recycling or whatever.
with a recycling company, yes. So there's a few that we offer them to staff, so that they don't go they do not go to landfill. They either go to staff. Staff have got old screens and that they've been given for home use, and we actually sold some laptops to the staff as well, so just to recoup some of those costs.
Thank you. But Nicole and then Paul.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good to see the LiDAR work being now available. And also good to see that we've now got 5 camera networks, which I'm assuming are going all the time. It was just a question on page 260. We're talking about upgrading the chambers in Taki room in February 2024. Should that be 25?
No, we did
Or has it
upgrade
been
it.
done?
No, they've been completed. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, all meeting rooms now have, well, this one has slightly different system, but all the other bigger meeting rooms all have identical systems in them. So you get the same experience wherever you go.
Thank you, Paul.
Through you, Chair, Jane, just looking at the world of technology and moving forward, are we a laptop based or a computer based organisation? Are we moving into the future of more cloud based handheld devices for recording out in the field especially, or is that currently happening now?
Yes,
That is currently happening now. And is that and that question, is that integrating with Windows Microsoft 365? And is that 365 part of our overall software system, or is it just an addition that tacks on? A lot of big questions.
So lots of
I
big
just want to
questions.
understand.
So, the right tools for the job is the
Yes.
first thing. So that's what we look at. So first thing is, what do you need to do your job? So if you need a laptop because you attend lots of meetings and you're out in the field and everything, then you get a laptop. If you are a high graphical user like the communications team or the GIS team, then they have a desktop that has high processing power and that they have the right, again, the right amount of power to do their job. We do a lot of data capture in the field, and so like at the moment we've got white band inspections on, so everybody who's doing white band inspections have they're all captured on a device, so on a tablet, and so that's all captured, fully integrated back into Iris, and so a beautiful report is sent to the customer at the end of it, and many of us just use our phones now because we are on Office 365, so the ability to be able to have a look at anywhere, anytime. Whether you're in Ikitahuna or Invercargill. So so fully integrated in that space.
Thank you.
Lyndall?
Thanks, Chairman. Cyber security, one of my favourite topics. Just wondering, because it's all amber and I kind of get that, right? But just wondering how we compare with the likes of the Q3 and the Q4 alerts, how we would compare across the sector in that space. Is that good, bad?
I think so. I think that there's always a challenge in this space because it's moving so fast, and we've invested in the right tools to help us to mitigate where possible.
So my question really is though, if I looked at ORC's report or ECAN's report, how would we compare in those kind of low severity alerts, etc.? Are we looking good, or are we?
I believe so. I have that's not a metrics that I've compared regionally, right? I haven't met with the new new IT managers at STC and ICC recently, so I'm not sure where they're sitting at.
Right.
But I think that we've got the same tools. So I'll report that up to Risk and Assurance next report.
Thanks.
It'll be a good one to compare. Yeah.
Anybody else? I recently discovered Antenno.
Oh, did you? Only recently?
Only recently, yes, I must confess. But it's really good stuff. Is everybody aware of that?
Yeah, I
Use it mainly for my red and yellow bin.
keep an eye on your.
So just on that, and probably I'll take one more moment of time, is that where environmental data is about to be released. We're just testing it internally, so that's the the High River Watch, and that's there is a banner on that for Antenno, so it'll become a lot more in faces that to sign up for it as well. So it'll be there. So we're working on making it more visible.
The camera at Mataura Bridge is really good.
Yes.
See the river come up, it goes all brown and then it goes down.
So I will flip actually councillors a link to the new for testing, because it has all the webcams and everything on it as well, the new website. So we've made some nice enhancements to it.
Yeah.
You include it through one of the regular weekly emails.
Yeah.
Yes, that must be where I saw that. So yeah, it's great.
Just on that issue, after having a look at the devastation in Hawke's Bay, is it interactive where people can actually report back in using that device, or is it a one-way?
For Antenno? Yes, there's a reporter functionality, yes.
If I might, Chairman, I reported a pest plant on Antino once. It's very exciting.
Yeah, you can easily take a photograph, it geotags you and it is again integrated back into ours.
Alistair?
I heard that you can actually see the fish in our Matara River. Keep it up.
I might be able to, yeah. Almost good enough for that. See if the birds are flying. And then all right, so that's, any other questions on that report? Okay, so we recommend that we receive the report about Jeremy and seconder Alistair. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jane. Now, item 10 is extraordinary and urgent business, and I'm not aware of any of that. So we go to public excluded business, which is the approval of the last minutes. So somebody, the reason that we need to go into public excluded written there on page 265, which is to prevent disclosure or use of official information for improper gain or advantage. Is that correct? Thank you.
Having read the reason, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Nicola. And seconder, Alistair. Those in favour, we move into public excluded.
Aye.
Have we turned off?
So we just need to turn that on.